Good morning. So this is my starter after I fed it yesterday. I let it sit overnight because it was kind of chilly, and it only came up to here. So the temperature plays a lot into sourdough, and when I mix my bread today, I'm gonna warm up my water so that my bread can start fermenting faster. I'm gonna make 2 loaves, but you can do the same exact process for 1. I usually use my largest glass Pyrex bowl. For 2 loaves, I put it into a plastic tub like this. So I'll show you how it looks when you're mixing and what the stretch and fold looks like. And hopefully that's helpful. And I'll show you how to feed the starter too. So my starter here has doubled. And if you look from the top, it's kind of bubbly and moving around. I'm gonna put 100 grams in here since I'm making 2 loaves. So my scale's zeroed out. And because I feed my starter with 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water, 100 grams is gonna be almost all of it. I should have about 10 grams left in this jar to feed. So I'll feed this and let it sit on the counter, and I might put it back in the fridge a little later today. So I have 100 grams in here. It's really helpful to know how much your jar weighs. So mine weighs 259 grams. So now I have, this says 277, which would tell me I have almost 20 grams of starter in there, but it really looks like it's been a scraped empty jar. So, you know, when the Bible tells us a little leaven leavens the whole lump, it's not kidding, because this will be enough to make your starter rise, which is just kind of crazy. Now I'm gonna add 50 grams of all-purpose flour. I'm gonna mix it together. If I'm just making 1 loaf and I only use half of my starter, sometimes I'll just take the half of it out and put my starter back in the fridge. But because I'm making 2 loaves and I took almost all of it out, I wanna make sure that it's fed. Now, if I leave this on the counter, I'm going to have to feed it again when it doubles in height. If I am not going to bake with it again, which I probably won't in the next day or 2, I'm just going to put it in my refrigerator so that I don't have to keep feeding it daily. So my rubber band is at its height, and I would take it out and let it warm up from the fridge and let it double, and then bake with it again. Okay, so I put my 100 grams of starter in here, or 50 if you're doing 1. I'm gonna zero out my scale, and I warmed up my water so that I can comfortably put my finger in it. It might be a little warm. I don't wanna kill the yeast with hot water, so sometimes I measure it with a thermometer, but then sometimes I wing it. So now I need to add 700 grams of water. I probably do not have enough in here. definitely don't have enough. I'm gonna get some more. All right, so I have warm water in here, and it's okay to have more than you need because you're gonna use that for the stretch and folds. So I'm gonna add 700 grams to my 100 grams of starter. I'm gonna keep a little bit of water on the side for our kneading process. So I'm gonna mix the starter into the water. And I like to do this first because it just really helps get the starter evenly distributed into the water before you add the flour in there. All right, and now I'm going to add my flour. So I've zeroed out the scale. Again, for one loaf, you can just do 500 grams of bread flour. I'm gonna do a blend, and I can send you those numbers. I'm gonna add, because this is 2 loaves, 300 grams of all-purpose flour. I wanna make sure I have enough bread flour in there to keep this gluten strength. And I don't want to add too much whole wheat flour because that absorbs more water. So I have 300 grams of all-purpose. I'm going to do 100 grams of whole wheat and 600 grams of bread flour. So again, I went a little over with my bread flour. I'm at 912 grams, so I'm just gonna top this off to 1,000 grams. With my whole wheat. And last but not least, salt. I'm going to do 22 grams of salt because it's 2 loaves. And now I'm going to mix it all together. So here I have a shaggy dough. Most of the water has been absorbed. I'm just gonna look through and make sure there's no big clumps of dry flour, and it's helpful to have a wet hand. So I have extra water here. I'm just gonna dip my hand in. And I don't want it too wet because there's a lot of water down here that hasn't been absorbed. I try to push the wettest parts onto any dry clumps of flour. And now I'm gonna let it sit for 1 hour. And then in an hour, I will come back and I'll show you how to do the stretch and folds and how the dough changes over time. And then what it looks like before, or when it's ready to be shaped and put into the refrigerator.